Yo guys, it's JJ here, and today I'm going to be walking you through the secrets that Cubeatz goes through to make dope beats for people like Gunna in a kind of ethnic vibe. But before we get into the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff down below. I appreciate the love you guys have been giving me recently. We're on the way to 1,000 subscribers, and of course to, give some love back because you guys are always supporting. I've got a bunch of free drum kits in the link below, so make sure to go grab those. But without further ado, let's just start the video. First thing you need to know about Cubeatz, especially when he's making stuff for Gunna, you want to be around that 132 BPM, and the key of this whole thing is an F-sharp minor. So the first plugin we've got, of course, is Contact 7, and we are using the bank Noir, and the preset is Noir Felt. As you guys can see, this is the first pattern we've got here, which is the piano, of course. But let me just break it down before we give it a listen. So one of the things that Cubeatz likes to do is, of course, use pianos, use different instruments, but the thing he does the most is he keeps it very simple and condensed. So you won't find too many sounds throughout this melody because, for example, like tunnel vision, he only uses a few sounds such as the guitar and the flute, and it's that simple. Now we look at this pattern here. First things first, we've got ourselves this chord that starts off on the very far left. It essentially just starts off with a C sharp going up to an F, an inverted F sharp again because we're just stacking octaves here, another F sharp, a C sharp here, a F sharp again, and then another C sharp. But as you guys can see, this first chord is essentially just built straight off just two notes, but it just sounds really good. And to give it a bit of movement, we add these nice little like filler notes, if that makes sense, giving it a bit of movement. Then looking into the next chord, we start off with a note that's A, of course, then we move up to the F sharp, and then going all the way up again, we go down to the G sharp. So from what you guys can see, if I take this actually up 2 octaves, these two notes are literally 1 semitone apart. And this is because when you place notes that are 1 semitone apart from each other, back to back or in the same thing, they sound really good. It gives a very dark feel, and that's kind of what we're going for here. And then last but not least, for the third chord, we've got ourselves starting with an F sharp, moving up to a G sharp, up to a D, up to a G sharp again, and then ending it with a C sharp. And as you can see, of course, we got these nice little transitional notes, as I just mentioned before, that are, of course, 1 semitone apart from what you could see. Again, reinforcing that dark vibe that Cubeatz and what I've done for this sample here kind of usually goes for. And then for the second half of this 8 bar, I just add these 3 little notes, as you can see again, all within the part of the scale where tension is felt. And before I play you guys the melody, you need to know I went through every single chord individually by clicking Control and left dragging, then clicking Alt S, and what I did was I individually adjusted the strength and the tension for every single chord, giving it its own unique strum, making it sound more human. And then on top of that, I clicked Alt R, randomizing the velocities, making it sound even more human, so the sample just sounds natural. And now, without further ado, this is what the piano sounds like. And there we have it. And as you guys can hear, this piano alone just sounds dope as hell. And of course, moving on to the effects, starting off with gross beat. As you guys can hear, that piano clearly had halftime on it. So when you go into gross beat, just right click here, go onto the momentary preset, and then go onto half speed. And that's how you get that effect. Next up, I added myself a Pro EQ3, but you could just use a regular EQ, of course. Cutting off almost all of the lows. I just left a few here because it just made the piano sound much more full. Then I just ducked a few frequencies I wasn't a big fan of. Next up, we got ourselves the instance of Fruity Delay 3. And all I did, as you guys could see, is these presets that I placed in personally. And of course, keeping pitch is something I'd really recommend doing. And the reason I added delay, it just gives a bit more of a bounce to the whole melody. And considering it's a very, very simple melody we're going to be going through, I felt like delay just added a bit more thickness to the whole thing. And then, last but not least, we got ourselves the instance of Valhalla Vintage Verb with, of course, a fair amount of reverb when looking at the presets. But the thing is, with adding a fair amount of reverb, it kind of helps with the whole vibe we're going for this Cubeatz vintage kind of sample, this little ethnic one. And it creates a lot of ambience, really reinforcing that dark vibe we got from the piano. And now for the last component of the melody, as I stated earlier, quite simple and straightforward. We got ourselves an instance of Mellotron 5. And the preset we are using is the default preset, which is Strawberry Flutes. As you guys know, Mellotron's highly used, and the Strawberry Flutes preset is super dope. So I made an 8 bar pattern, which is essentially just, a 4 bar but looped over. So when looking into the pattern, if you go on your magnet tool and then go down to a 3rd beat, that's why I adjusted it to, so we can give it a nice little triplet flow, triplet vibe, of course. That's what Gunna goes for usually, so that's why I did that. And if we focus in on the 4 bar when looking at the flute melody, as we can see from these notes right here and these notes down here and here, everything is practically in tension within that little part of the scale I was telling you about, where notes are just 1 semitone apart, giving that dark vibe. And of course, I made these nice little rolls, you know, going up with the flute, going down again, you know, giving it a little bit of a vibe. And then at the end of it all, I just copy and pasted it over for a full 8 and clicked Alt-R to randomize my velocities yet again. As for effects, I added a fruity panamatic just because I wanted to give a bit of movement to the flute, because as I've stated multiple times, the sample is essentially just 2 instruments, so, you know, giving it a bit of movement, adding the delay onto the piano, just fills it up a bit more in my opinion. And next up we got ourselves Valhalla Vintage Verb that was whacked on top. Then next up we got ourselves a instance of an EQ, cutting off all the unwanted lows. And then last but not least, I got myself an instance of Valhalla Vintage Verb, and then just whacked on these presets as you guys can see. Oh, of course, and last but not least, I started separated the flute 100% just to really widen it in the mix and give it again a bit more of an ambient feel. And now, without further ado, this is what the melody sounds like. And there you have it, folks. Sounds super dope, a nice melody, simple but also super full at the same time. But without further ado, let's just get into the drums. So first thing being first is I've got myself a simple clap pattern. We all know what clap I'm using, the Lex Luger stop clap. And of course, it's a very simple pattern as you guys can see here. So let's just move on to the hi-hats. Onto the hi-hats, of course. And as you guys can see, it's a simple pattern I've got myself here, but I'll break it down for you all, of course. And last but not least, you need to know, we got ourselves this little loop that is just a 2-bar going again over and over and over until it's a full 8. Reason I did this, honestly, is because simplicity is key. Repetitiveness also really reinforces the Gunna vibe, and it really gives a nice bounce. So let me just break this down for you. So if we essentially just look into this full 2-bar here, go up to the magnet tool and go into 1/6 beat instead. This is the magnet that I used because I wanted to give it a certain vibe. And again, that little triplet flow that Gunna has, that I had on the melody, also use it on the hi-hats, just to really reinforce that Gunna vibe that Cubeatz would want to cater to. So all I did was actually hold right, drag down 1 and get onto this paintbrush tool, click a note, and as you guys can see, whenever you moved it, it just drags the notes for you. So I started off with a simple bounce, added a simple triplet roll, then added a bigger triplet roll, which would be from the 1/3 step if you had the magnet on, added another bounce, a nice little roll where the clap kicks in, and then these 2 notes back to back. And that's all for the hi-hats, people. Very simple and straightforward, because after that 2-bar, all I did was click Control, left click and drag, Control B, Control B, Control B, and that just copy and pasted the whole hi-hat. So without further ado, this is what the clap and the hi-hats sound like. And there we have it. And as you guys can already hear, purely off just 4 sounds, you can really get that Gunna vibe, that Gunna feel that Cubeatz again would usually go for with his ethnic kind of samples, dark, ambient. And I know for a fact you guys are already feeling this as well. So make sure, you know, drop a like down below. Highly appreciate. First thing you need to know about my 808, I'm using the Wheezy 808. And if you don't have it, honestly, just go on Reddit, type in Wheezy 808, you'll find it for free. Everyone has it. And for the 808 pattern, I went back onto my magnet tool and clicked step, keeping it back to like the original kind of vibe. And as for the pattern, all I did was follow the root notes, apart from this instance where I use a D because it sounds good. Start off with the C sharp, then move it up to an F sharp, of course, because that's when the pitch changes from the root note. F sharp again, take it down to a D, and literally just repeat the pattern 4-bar, looped over. Second thing you need to know is I click Control A and I use my right scroller wheel to max my velocities out. I always say this in every single video of mine. It's a very, very important thing to do in my opinion, because if you do it to your 808 and your kick, it makes it punchier. It sounds really good in a mix. Really gives you that hip hop vibe that you're going for. Really just caters to all sorts of rap beats. And it sounds even better for artists, to be honest with you guys. So this is really why I do that. And for the kick pattern, it's essentially just the 808 pattern, but kept at the same pitch, which is the root note C, you know. And of course, I maxed out my velocities here again. And now that I've walked you guys through the whole beat, and this is what it sounds like. And there you have it, folks. Simple and straightforward, but that is a full beat that Cubeatz would make for Gunna. And before we end this video, let me just walk you all through the structure of the beat real quick. So, first things first is, you may be thinking, how can the structure be complex if it's such a simple beat? Well, surprise, surprise, it's a simple structure. First things first, we got ourselves the intro, which is an 8-bar. and it's literally just a piano playing alone with my producer tag. Then when the chorus hits, I introduce the flute and all of the other drums alongside it. That causes a total of 16 bars being played just here. And next up, we got ourselves the verse section, and it's literally just 3 8 bars back to back to back, and that's what a verse is. So when I zoom in, if we focus on the first part right here, as you guys can see, I first start with the piano, take out all the drums, and reintroduce them after 2 bars played. This is because it indicates to the artist, okay, we're out of the chorus now, the drums have been stripped out, we're going into a verse. So I did that, reintroduced the drums. Then for the main part of the verse, which is the second part, I literally just kept it simple, played it all together, back to back to back, apart from the flute is just not there. And now looking at the final section of the verse, which is the third part of the verse, which is the third 8 bar. I like to call this a pre-hook because it's the verse right before the hook. And to indicate to the artist that, look, we're building up again back into the hook, I stripped out everything apart from the hi-hats, reintroduced the clap for the second part of the 8 bar. And then of course, as simple as that, we're back into the same chorus structure that I had before, another chorus structure, another verse structure, just like I had it before, and of course, the chorus yet again. And that is literally the whole video for you guys. How to make a dope sample, how to get some nice drums going for Gunna. Of course, everything for you guys on a platter. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have really enjoyed this video. And of course, take it easy. Peace.